I told my husband I'd always keep my ex in my life. He announced our divorce at a family gathering. Hi, Reddit. I never actually thought I'd be writing something like this, but here we are. My 33F entire life imploded in the most humiliating way possible, and I know it's 100% my fault. I fucked up so bad that it took my ex-husband, 32M, announcing he was divorcing me in front of my family to give me a reality check, and by then it was too late. If this looks like one of those woman blows up her life for no or stupid reason stories, that's because it's exactly what it is. So rewind. I've known my ex since I was 14. We were high school sweethearts, then went to the same university. We dated for almost 8 years on and off, and he was the love of my life in that stupid teenage way. Except real life doesn't work like that. He was a disaster. He was addicted to drugs, and not in the he parties too much on weekends way. I'm talking full-blown everything in shambles, unreliable, lying, breaking promises kind of addiction. He could be sweet sometimes, but 90% of the time he was just a mess of a human being. No stability, no plans, no future. And me? I stayed way longer than I should have because I thought love could fix him. Spoiler alert, it didn't. By our 3rd year of university, I couldn't do it anymore. I was exhausted, drained, and honestly scared for my own future. I wanted more. I wanted someone stable, someone who could take care of me instead of me constantly dragging them out of the gutter. So I broke up with him. He spiraled even worse, and we had 0 contact for years after. He didn't want to hear from me, and honestly, I didn't want to see what he was becoming. About a year after the breakup, in my final year of uni, I met the man who would become my husband. And he was everything my ex wasn't. Dependable, steady, clean. He had never touched drugs, didn't smoke, barely even drank. He had a good head on his shoulders, landed a solid job right after graduation, and most importantly, he was kind, patient, the kind of man who would never raise his voice. He wasn't perfect. If anything, he could be a bit of a doormat. He avoided conflict like it was his religion. He'd let things slide that probably shouldn't have been let slide. If there was a disagreement about where to eat, what to do, or even big stuff like vacations or money, he'd always say, "Whatever you want, babe." And I kind of liked that. I can be pushy and insistent when I want something, and he never pushed back. At the time, I liked that about him. It felt easy. We dated for 5 years, got married when I was 27 and he was 26, and we've been married for 6 years. My marriage was great. Really, it was. My husband was a good person, and honestly, he still is. I can't sit here and paint him as the villain because he's not. He was a great guy. He always had my back, and I pushed him too far. It's honestly crazy when I look back on it, the sheer amount of bullshit he swallowed before finally snapping. He let so many things slide. He let me win arguments I had no business winning. He gave me grace when I didn't deserve it. I don't want to sound delusional here. I know what I did. I know exactly how bad it was. I'm not writing this to get sympathy or to have people pat me on the back. I know I screwed up. I'm not here to justify my bullshit. I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here because I need to rant about how I ruined my marriage. And isn't that what this subreddit is for? To talk about how you fucked up? Well, this is mine. Like I said before, when I broke up with my ex, he spiraled even worse than before, and we just cut off contact. For years. I didn't hear a single thing about him, and honestly, I thought that chapter of my life was completely done, which is why I was so shocked when he reached out to me, out of the blue. It was through social media, just a random message request. I stared at it for a while, debating if I should even open it. At first, I didn't want to respond. I mean, what's the point, right? But then I don't know, I just had to, because in some way, I had missed him. I wanted to know what was going on in his life, even though I knew better. I told myself it was harmless curiosity. It had been so many years. What's so bad about answering a message? That's how I rationalized it. So I accepted his message request, and we started talking. The very next day, he invited me out to dinner, and without even really thinking about it, I said yes. I didn't stop to question it. I didn't bring it up to my husband. I didn't even consider what it would look like. I just said yes. I should have told my husband, of course I should have. But at the time, it didn't even cross my mind. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I just didn't think. Or maybe because a part of me knew I shouldn't, and it was easier to pretend it wasn't a big deal. The next day, I went out to dinner with my ex. I was surprised when I saw him. He wasn't sober, but he wasn't the complete disaster I remembered. He looked rough, yeah, but he told me it was because he was trying to get clean and was going through withdrawals. He said he was on the right track working on himself, and I bought it. I told myself that was good, that was important, that maybe he was finally figuring himself out. We sat there and talked, and it was like no time had passed. We caught up about where our lives had gone, filled in all the missing years, and it felt nice. When I went home, I did tell my husband, but the way I did it makes me cringe now. I just casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, I saw M today. We had dinner." He was surprised, very surprised. He asked me questions, tried to understand, and I brushed him off like it was nothing. Just waved it away, told him it wasn't a big deal, and then went straight to bed. I didn't even think about it. Didn't even consider how it must have sounded to him, how it must have felt. Looking back, I see how shitty that was, but at the time, I treated it like it was just some throwaway thing. After that day, I started seeing my ex a lot more. Dinner here, hanging out there, grabbing drinks, running little errands together. It just sort of became a thing. And I honestly don't think I really stopped to think about how it looked. And when I did think about it, I always had a way to talk myself out of the guilt. I'd tell myself, well, it's not like I'm cheating. I'm not sneaking around. I'm not lying about where I'm going. I'd convince myself that it wasn't really wrong. It was just spending time with someone who used to be a big part of my life. I thought my husband would eventually get over it, which honestly is such a fucked up way to think. When he did finally confront me about how much time I was spending with my ex, I answered so matter-of-factly. I literally told him he's always going to be in my life. Like it was non-negotiable, like I was setting down some law. Now I realize how insane that must have sounded to him. What kind of wife says that? But in my head at the time, it felt reasonable. I thought my ex and I shared too much history to just erase him. I told myself you don't just pretend someone you once loved never existed. On top of that, he was struggling, going through withdrawals, trying to get sober, and I convinced myself he needed me, that I was doing this out of compassion, out of care. I can't just abandon him when he's trying to change. My husband didn't say much. He never really was the talker in our marriage. He didn't argue, didn't blow up. He just kind of nodded and said, "If that's what you want, then fine." But I could tell that he didn't love the idea. He didn't say it outright, but it was obvious he wasn't pleased. I brushed it off. I convinced myself he was just being overly jealous, insecure even. And embarrassingly enough, I actually liked the thought that he might be jealous, like, oh, he still wants me, he still cares. At first I liked it, then the little arguments started. Not screaming matches or big blow-ups, no, that's never been my husband's style. Like I said before, he's not the type to raise his voice or slam doors. My husband is extremely non-confrontational. He avoids conflict like it's the fucking plague. But he also wasn't completely silent either. He made it pretty clear in his own way that he didn't like my so-called friendship with my ex. And honestly, I can't even blame him, especially when I started canceling plans we'd already made just so I could go hang out with my ex instead. He didn't like how much I texted my ex, how my phone was basically glued to my hand, how I was always replying instantly like I was on call 24/7. He didn't like it at all. Back then, I didn't realize just how much my ex was leaning into all of it. He was always texting me, always sending me some dumb meme or asking me some random question, always keeping a steady chain of conversation going. And whenever I told him I had plans with my husband, it was almost like clockwork a few hours later. My phone would light up with some emergency. He'd say he'd had a relapse, or his withdrawals were so bad he didn't know what to do, or he just needed someone to talk to. There was always something. And me, I fell for it. Every single time. I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't thinking much at all. I told myself he needed me, and that made me feel important. But my husband wasn't stupid. He's always been such an observant person. He caught on to the cycle really quickly. He actually sat me down once, like a real serious talk, the kind he never usually did, and he told me he'd noticed the pattern, how every time we made plans together, my ex suddenly needed me. He tried to explain that it wasn't a coincidence, that I was being manipulated, that my ex knew exactly what he was doing. And what did I do? I brushed him off. I thought he was just jealous. I thought he was just trying to sabotage my friendship with my ex. I actually convinced myself of that. Looking back now, I cringe so hard because it's so obvious how naive I was being. The day my husband announced our divorce at a family gathering, I swear to God, I did not see that shit coming, not even a little bit. I was completely blindsided. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, yeah, I should have seen it coming from a mile away with all the dumb shit I was doing. Hell, I probably deserved it. But back then, I was so fucking shocked that I actually thought he might have been joking. Like, this man doesn't crack jokes in public, but my brain still went straight to, oh, maybe he's just kidding around. It was one of those big family BBQ days. My parents loved to host those every couple of weeks, sometimes even twice a month because it brought everyone together. Cousins, nieces, nephews, extended family, the whole goddamn crew. It was basically tradition. And because my husband and I lived the closest to my parents' place, we were always the ones who got roped into being the first responders. Emergencies, call us, cookouts, we'd show up early to help. That was our thing. But that morning, my ex just wouldn't leave me alone. He kept blowing up my phone before we even left the house. Texts, calls, back to back. He said he was feeling lonely, said he needed me, said his head was in a bad place. He made it sound urgent. He made it sound like life or death. And me, in all my brilliant wisdom, I fell for it again. So I turned to my husband and told him to just head over to my parents first, help them set up, that I was going to swing by and check on my ex and that it wouldn't take long, just a couple minutes. I could see it in his face. Obviously, he wasn't happy. He even said it. He told me I'd lose track of time. He told me I had just seen my ex yesterday, so what could possibly be so urgent today? But I brushed him off, rolled my eyes, told him to just go, and like he always did, he sighed, swallowed his feelings, and left. And of course, just like he predicted, I didn't spend a couple minutes there. I spent hours, because my ex knew exactly how to keep me there. Every time I tried to leave, he'd hit me with the sad face, the guilt trip, the whole pitiful act, talking about how he was spiraling, how he felt sick, how I was the only person he could lean on. And I, like the absolute idiot, I was let myself get sucked in. Again. By the time I finally showed up at my parents' house, the BBQ was already in full swing. I was late, embarrassingly late, and I knew it. I avoided my husband, slipped straight past the crowd and into the kitchen to find my mom, thinking maybe I could make myself useful. But of course, by then everything was already done. My mom was rinsing the last dishes, wiping down counters. She turned, saw me, and she was obviously disappointed. She didn't beat around the bush either. She asked me straight out where the hell I'd been and why I was late. For a second, I considered lying, saying I got caught in traffic or something stupid, but it was obvious she already knew. So I just came clean. I told her I had gone to see my ex because he sounded bad on the phone and I thought he needed me. My mom didn't even blink. She just gave me a disappointed look. Then she told me flat out that what I was doing wasn't healthy. She said I had one foot in my marriage and one foot in the past, and that it was bullshit, especially since it was obvious my husband wasn't okay with it. That stung, and instead of taking it to heart, what did I do? I laughed, like an idiot. I brushed it off. I told her my husband was just insecure, jealous, maybe even controlling. I told her that by keeping my ex in my life, I was proving how mature I was, how I could handle complicated relationships without letting them interfere with my marriage. My mom scoffed right in my face. She told me that was absolute bullshit. Then she went right back to slicing bread, not even giving me the satisfaction of an argument. Deep down, I knew she was right. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew she was telling the truth. I had no excuse, no justification, no clever spin to make it okay. The BBQ went on like any other family get-together. Honestly, I had even forgotten about all the shit that had gone down earlier. For a while, it was just pure fun. I wasn't thinking about my ex. I wasn't thinking about the arguments. None of it. My husband was still quiet, but like I said before, that was nothing unusual for him. He's never been the loud one in the room, so I didn't read into it. Hours passed, the kids wandered inside to watch TV or play video games, and the adults stayed out back, still talking and catching up. And then, out of nowhere, my husband says he's got something to announce. I remember wondering what the hell he could have to announce. Divorce didn't even cross my mind. Like, not even close. My first thought was, oh my God, is he about to do something sweet? Maybe he wants to make some kind of grand romantic gesture. I was half smiling, waiting for him to say something like that. But nope. He stands up, looks around the table, and says, flat as anything, that we're getting a divorce. The silence that followed was loud. Plates down, forks dropped, conversations cut short. Everyone just froze. Even me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It was like someone had poured ice water over my entire body. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I just sat there, completely stunned. My sister was the first to snap out of it, blurting out something like, "Wait, what? Is this some kind of joke?" Her face was all scrunched up, like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. But my husband didn't flinch. He said no, it wasn't a joke. He said he was tired and done, that he'd been patient, he'd spoken up, he'd set boundaries, and I'd blown right past all of them. That I treated him like a doormat, like he'd just roll over while my ex became the bigger priority in my life than my own marriage. He said this was the final straw. He couldn't take it anymore. I was embarrassed, hurt, but more than anything, I was shocked, completely blindsided. I didn't know what to do, so I acted like a child. I stood up and bolted, didn't say a single word, just ran off like some teenager storming out after a fight. My sister was the only one who came after me, trying to calm me down, but honestly, I didn't even hear half of what she said. My mind was spinning. After that, I avoided every single attempt my husband made to talk about the divorce. Every single one. It was like if I ignored it long enough, it wouldn't be real. Like if I shoved my head in the sand, the whole damn problem would just disappear. Even that night when we got home, I didn't bring it up. I didn't ask him if he meant it, didn't ask if he was serious, didn't even say the word divorce. I pretended like he hadn't said anything at all. Instead, I went into damage control mode. I blocked my ex on everything, phone, social media, everything, immediately. That BBQ announcement was my wake-up call, my slap in the face. My ex had been dragging me down and ruining my marriage, and I should have seen it sooner. So I cut him off, just like that. Then I tried to patch things up with my husband. I started planning date nights, me, not him. Normally, he'd been the one to do that, and I'd been the one canceling half of them because of my ex and his emergencies. Hell, I even canceled our anniversary dinner once because of my ex. My manipulated, pathetic ex. I look back on that now and I just want to slap myself. So I tried harder. I cleaned more around the house, spent more time with my husband, planned things, cooked more. I threw myself into being a better wife, or at least what I thought would make up for it. But I never actually talked to him about the divorce. Whenever he brought it up, I'd shut down, change the subject, brush it off. I thought if I pretended long enough that he hadn't said it, then maybe it wouldn't be true. Maybe it would just vanish. Weeks later, I got the official blow, divorce papers, like the real deal. Not some "I'm still mad" threat, not some "we need space" thing. Actual papers, my name typed right there in black and white. I couldn't believe it. I swear, I just stood there holding the envelope like my brain refused to process what the hell was happening. And then I lost it. I cried, I screamed, I threw a tantrum like a damn teenager. I'm embarrassed to even think about it now, honestly, but in that time, I was desperate. I begged him. I dropped to my knees. I grabbed his arm like maybe if I held on tight enough, he'd change his mind. Spoiler, he didn't. I even tried pulling the call-in reinforcements move. My mom and my husband had always been kind of close. Like sometimes I'd joke that he liked her more than me. So of course I thought, okay, if anyone can talk some sense into him, it's her. I called her up, crying into the phone, asking her to please talk to him. She tried, bless her, but not even that made him budge. He was stone cold about it. Like once he made that decision, that was it. After that, it was like I wasn't even living anymore. I felt like I was stuck underwater while life just kept moving on without me. I'd spend hours crying in the shower until the water ran cold, like I thought maybe if I stayed in there long enough, I could just wash the hurt off me. My work performance tanked hard. I'd stare at my screen for hours getting nothing done, and I actually almost lost my job. I had to take unpaid leave because I couldn't keep it together. I tried everything I could to reconcile with him. Little texts, little apologies, even cooking his favorite meals, random sweet gestures, anything I thought might spark something again. But it was too late. He had already checked out, and I didn't see it until it smacked me right in the face. About a month later, he moved out. He'd already found a new apartment, like He was prepared way before I even realized we were actually done. One night he told me flat out that he was moving out, that the house would go on the market, or if I wanted, I could buy out his portion after the divorce. And just like that, he packed up and left. Watching him walk out the door with his stuff was the worst day of my life. I eventually did end up buying out his portion, but honestly, the house has never felt the same since. About 3 months later, the divorce was finalized, just like that. It was quick, almost brutally quick. We had no kids, no real joint assets aside from the house, so there wasn't a whole lot to drag out. The paperwork slid through, the signatures were done, and boom, I was officially divorced. I've never been the same since then. Honestly, I wasn't the same even before it was finalized. It was like the moment he handed me those papers, something in me cracked and never got put back together. Like I said before, I ended up buying out his portion of the house, and it wasn't because it was financially smart, hell no. It was because I couldn't bear to part with it. That house was ours, and I couldn't stomach the idea of starting over somewhere new, packing up my life into boxes and pretending it was just another move. No, I couldn't do it. The house still smelled like him. The sheets still smelled like him. His little things were still tucked away in places, like he might come back for them. Letting go of that house felt like letting go of him completely, and I just wasn't strong enough for that. So I drained what little savings I had and bought his share. It was stupid, but at the time it felt like the only choice. Starting over somewhere new? I didn't have it in me. By the time the divorce was finalized, I was a miserable fucking mess. Depressed doesn't even cover it. I'd come home, collapse into bed, cry until I passed out, then drag myself to work just to sit at my desk like a ghost. I almost quit. I wanted to. I didn't care about anything. I was basically living like a hermit. And to make it worse, I had no money left since I'd poured everything into keeping that house. The only reason I didn't spiral completely into some deep, dark hole was because of my sister. She was my lifeline. She kept checking on me, pulling me out of bed, talking me down when I wanted to wallow in guilt all day. She reminded me to eat, to breathe, to keep moving forward. Honestly, I don't even think she knows just how much she saved me during that time. She did so much for me, and I'll always appreciate her for it. But me, I felt like the worst bitch alive. Like, how do you fuck up a marriage with a good man like that? How do you wreck something so solid by doing something so stupid? I still don't know. And the truth is, I don't think I'll ever be okay. I don't think I'll ever fully forgive myself. And as for my ex, fuck him. He got what he wanted out of me. This turned into way longer of a rant than I planned, but if you've read this far, thank you. I've been a lurker here for years reading other people's fuck-up stories, but since it's been months since the divorce, I felt like it was time to share mine. Like I said before, I know I'm the villain in this story. I know I fucked up. My ex-husband holds no blame and never will. I'm not here for judgment, because trust me, no one could judge me harder than I already judge myself. I just needed to put this somewhere.